something else.
Ooh, who could I be? Guy, you've had a haircut since yesterday, yeah?
Well,
Yeah.
it's my false background here.
Oh, it's okay. It's beautiful though. Are you at
First
the
time.
Are you back at the library?
No, no.
Oh,
I'm sitting in my car outside Blueberry Hall where the internet is really good.
Newberry Hall. Nice. Okay.
Now, where is that?
Yeah.
Just, just west of Stony Plain, about 6 miles.
So you had to go out in the bush?
Well, not quite the bush.
He had to leave the bush to get the blueberry.
Oh, there's
Moving forward.
Jason.
Hello, Barbie.
Hi, Jason. Long time no seen.
Yes, great to see you.
How are you?
Larry. Hi, Larry.
And Audrey. Hi, Audrey. I'm getting to
Hello.
know people.
Yeah,
Uh,
I lit candles for you this morning.
oh, thank you. So sweet of you. I've been thinking about you too, how sweet you were.
A little background on that. These two met yesterday and shared some private and intimate moments and on the poetry day, and so that's what they're reminiscing about. Okay, I'd like to say welcome to everybody that's here. We got 14. It's a little bit after 2 o'clock already, and so we should get started. And this is the sixth event in the World Interfaith Harmony Week set of offerings. My name is Guy Blood, and I'm the current president of the Edmonton Interfaith Center. And for those of you who don't know about the organization, the Edmonton Interfaith Center promotes harmony, peace, respect, and unity amongst all faith traditions. One of our committees, the World Interfaith Harmony Week Committee, composed of people from various faith traditions, organized these events of this week. This event is part of a series that we do often. It's about faith explorations. Now, before COVID, we were able to actually visit various worship centers throughout the city and experience what the people do and what the people believe in that faith tradition. And we haven't been able to do that for quite some time, and I'm looking forward to being able to do that again. But in the meantime, this is the format that we're going to use, is using Zoom to explore another faith that you may or may not be aware of and know the details of. And I'll ask Patty a little bit later to tell us more about what's going to happen today. But before that, I'd like to ask Jason Fleming to say something about Treaty 6.
Thanks, Guy. As you said, my name is Jason Fleming. I'm actually originally from southwestern Manitoba, which is located on Treaty 2 territory. That's the land where my family settled and where most of my family still lives and works. I'm joining you today not from Blueberry School, but from Stony Plain, Alberta, just outside of Edmonton, which I think most of you are probably from, is my guess. Edmonton is located on Treaty 6 territory, and that extends from the Rocky Mountains through central Alberta and across Saskatchewan. And in a spirit of reconciliation and respect, I recognize our troubled history of colonialism and oppression, and pray for healing and a new spirit of unity and collaboration with First Nations and all people. The land acknowledgement is a small gesture to bring awareness to and express gratitude for our First Nations brothers and sisters, whose rich culture and long suffering for too long has been invisible, dismissed, or ignored. Let me now read the land acknowledgement. I acknowledge and respect and had the honor of growing up on Treaty 2 territory in what is today known as Manitoba, traditional home of the Anishinaabe, Chipewyan, and Cree, and Métis peoples. I acknowledge that we are gathering today on Treaty 6 territory. Treaty 6 encompasses the traditional territories of numerous First Nations, including the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and Métis. Thank you, Guy.
Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator today, and that's Patty Nixon. Patty, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name's Patty Nixon, and I am physically located in Spruce Grove, Alberta right now. So a little bit west of Edmonton as well. This is my first meeting with all of you. And yeah, so as far as this afternoon goes, first off, I'm going to do a little introduction of our guest speaker, and Paul is going to speak for approximately 35, maybe 40 minutes. And then at the end of that, we're going to have a little extra time for Q&A. So if you've got some questions along the way that pop up in your head, jot them down, keep track, and you can submit them. And I'm sure Guy will fill me in on how the Q&A actually happens once we get down to that portion. But yeah, save them up and hang on to them. So I have the pleasure of introducing you to Mr. Paul Bujold. I read through his resume that Guy sent me, and I thought, wow, this fella's been a few places. So I condensed it down a little bit, but he'll fill us in on some of the important blanks. But he's been a member of the Bahai faith since 1971 and served on local, provincial, and international bodies related to the Bahai faith and connected to different agencies throughout the world. So his experience extends as a lecturer and trainer and in the faith community as a whole. And we're about to hear more about that as far as our theme goes on faith explorations. On a closer to home note, in his professional life, I jotted down here that Paul specializes in community development and business development and works with social services, child welfare, as well as Indigenous health and welfare and finances. So Paul, without further ado, I will let you take it away.
Thanks, Patty. That was a very good introduction. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the slide presentation that I've got. I'm going to stop for a second. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about building a spiritual civilization. That's basically what the Baha'i faith is focused on. So I'm going to go through a presentation as if you, and so you'll just have to sort of, I know some of you have already heard about the Baha'i faith, but I'm going to give you a short introductory history and then start talking about some of the principles of spiritual civilization that we want to address today. So the first part is the history of the Baha'i faith. The Baha'i faith is unusual that it has two prophets. So the first prophet was a man called Sayyid Ali Muhammad, from Shiraz. He was born in 1819 and declared his mission in 1844. The primary purpose of his revelation was to close the prophetic cycle of revelation and to open the era of fulfillment. So, you know, from his perspective, all of the prophets previous to that had prophesied about this time in history, and it was time now to actually fulfill all of these prophecies that had been put in place. His task was also to create the right spiritual condition to bring about this destined human spiritual maturation. And so he called himself the gate. by which other things would pass through. His message was received enthusiastically by thousands in Persia in the 1800s. And it raised, of course, significant religious opposition by the Shia clergy and by government people as well. This eventually led to his execution in 1850 in Tabriz, as well as the killing of thousands of his followers. The Bab came to the attention of a lot of people, not only in Persia at the time, but also in Europe. So people like Count Leo Tolstoy, Lord Curzon, who's a well-known explorer, the 1893 World Parliament of Religions, British and Russian diplomats who were living in Iran at the time, and newspapers all over the world. So in the UK, Spain, the Netherlands, Russia, France, the US, India, Australia, and New Zealand all heard about the Bab as well. This is the shrine of the Bab on Mount Carmel in Iran. So this is where the Bab is buried. And this shrine is the focal point of the administrative center of the Bahai World Center, which is located in Iran, in Haifa, sorry. In the second prophet is called Baha'u'llah. So his given name was Mirza Hussein Ali Nuri. So Mirza means that he came from a noble family, and his father had been a vizier to one of the sons of the Shah at the time. He was born in 1817 in Iran, in Tehran actually, and died in 1892. He declared his mission in 1863 and claimed to be the promised messenger foretold by the Bab. So the Bab had foretold that there would be a second messenger that would follow soon after, and Baha'u'llah said that he was that messenger. His primary purpose was to bring about the unification of the human race and to create a spiritual civilization that's worldwide. He was exiled by the Persian government first to Baghdad in the Ottoman Empire, and because they were afraid of what his teachings may have, the effect that it may have on their community. He was further exiled by the Ottoman Sultan to Constantinople in Turkey, and from Constantinople he was sent to Adrianople and finally to Akka in Palestine, to the prison city of Akka, and he remained there for the rest of his life. Baha'u'llah passed away in 1892, and he's buried close to Akka. His shrine is the Qibla of the Baha'i world, which means it's the focal point where all Baha'is turn when they say their prayers. In the 160 years since Baha'u'llah first proclaimed his mission, the Baha'i faith has spread to 190 countries of the 195 countries in the world. Its membership is now around 5 million. That covers some 2,000 tribes and races with members in more than 116,000 localities. This is the shrine of Baha'u'llah, which is just outside of Akka. And as I said, this is the focal point of all Baha'is when they say their prayers. So I'm going to talk a bit about the teachings of Baha'u'llah. So Baha'is believe, and this is what Baha'u'llah said at the very beginning of his mission, was that God has and will continue to provide prophets or messengers to guide humanity, and he'll do that, has done that in the past and will continue to do that in the future. So Baha'is recognize all of the major prophets of all of the major religions. So Krishna, Abraham, Moses, Zoroaster, Buddha, Christ, Muhammad, and of course the Bab and Baha'u'llah. We also recognize that there have been messengers that have come to other peoples, including the indigenous people here in North America, but their history has largely been lost to us. So because these messengers, their purpose is to put into effect God's plan for humanity. And God's plan in this day, from the teachings of Baha'u'llah, is to create global unity and peace. So that this is a stage of human maturity. So up to this point, Baha'u'llah said that we were in our childhood and adolescence, and now we've reached the point of adulthood where we have to move into a more mature way of interacting with one another, and that this level of maturity and unity will bring about a level of learning and prosperity that hasn't ever been seen before in the world. So from the writings of Baha'u'llah, he says that religion is the chief instrument for the establishment of the order of the world and the tranquility of its peoples. So from a Baha'i point of view, the development of the world isn't reliant on great empires or great wealth. It's reliant on these teachers coming from God to set out the principles for the development of the world. As his son Abdul Wahab points out, that universal benefits derive from these divine religions. So in the process of following the various prophets, the peoples learn different things, and they learn how to act in the right way. And so Abdul Wahab lists a whole list of things that result from religion. So all of us who've been the beneficiaries of these various prophets have already learned a lot of these things, and we're now required to learn even more how to live together in unity across the whole globe. So from a Baha'i perspective, that Baha'u'llah says that our vision needs to be world embracing, so that rather than looking at what our own needs are, we should look at the needs of the world and find ways to meet those needs. He also says that we should consort with one another in all religions, that all religions should come together in friendliness and fellowship. And this Interfaith Council is one of the prime examples of that, how people from all different faith communities are coming together to work together and to find solutions to problems together. That's exactly what Baha'u'llah says needs to happen. So Baha'u'llah says the purpose of for which mortal men have from utter nothingness stepped into the realm of being is that they may work together for the betterment of the world and live in concord and harmony. So, as far as Baha'is are concerned, and from the teachings of Baha'u'llah, our purpose here on earth is to learn to work together. That is what we're here for. We're not here to get rich. We're not here to, gain fame or riches. We're here to learn how to work with one another and how to live in concord and harmony. That is our purpose on this planet. So the whole focus of the Baha'i community is on building a spiritual civilization. And they obviously realize that this isn't going to happen only through the efforts of Baha'is. It's going to happen when all religions come together and work together to bring about this, spiritual civilization. So as I said earlier, because of this belief that it's not through material progress that this is going to happen. It's going to be only through spiritual progress first that will achieve this kind of unity. It's most important for religions to work together to bring the world to this level of understanding. So, as Abdu'l-Baha says, the universal benefits that are derived from the grace of divine religions lead their followers to sincerity of intent, high purpose, purity and spotless honor, to surpassing kindness and compassion, to keeping their covenants when they have covenanted, to concern for the rights of others and to liberality, to justice in every aspect of life, to humanity and philanthropy, to valor and unflagging efforts in the service of mankind. So those are things that only arise out of religion. You don't get those kinds of virtues by gathering wealth or focusing on physical things. So the process basically, for a Baha'is anyway, the process has three main pillars. The first one is prayer, reflection, and action. So Baha'u'llah says that we need to have our deeds be the things that we take pride in, not our words. So it's what we do, not what we say, that has the biggest effect. And so he also says that praying unceasingly is of no benefit to anyone unless there's some action that comes out of it. So without action, prayer doesn't do a thing. So this sort of, if you look at this old adage, God helps those who help themselves. Baha'u'llah says that the doing is what is going to count. In the eyes of God, it's going to be the doing and not the speaking that's going to bring God's attention to it. So Abdu'l-Baha points out that our actions every day should be viewed as prayers. In the Baha'i community, work and service are considered to be prayer as much as saying the words. And it's an attitude. Prayer is an attitude, not an isolation from the world of humanity. So those actions that we should be focusing on as our prayer are finding ways to enrich the poor, to raise the fallen, to comfort the sorrowful, to heal the sick, to reassure the fearful, to rescue the oppressed, and to bring hope to the hopeless and shelter the destitute. So, as you can see, prayer and action in this approach is really what is going to bring about this promised God's kingdom on earth. The second pillar is being of service. So, Baha'u'llah says that it's not, that the person who can take pride in his life is the one who's trying to be of service to humanity and who dedicates his whole life to the service of humanity. That's what our purpose on this planet is for. And our purpose then is to carry this ever-advancing civilization and to grow in strength by being of service to one another, not by growing riches. So where we find ourselves today, Baha'u'llah says that this kind of civilization is going to fall apart because it's not based on anything that can hold it up. It doesn't have a foundation that's strong enough to keep it standing up. And this building is going to fall down. And we can see it falling down all around us because it's not based on any spiritual principles. So it's when people come together and find ways to solve problems by taking counsel together and being of service to one another, that is the pillar that's going to keep this building aloft. Otherwise, it's just going to fall on its bricks. The third pillar is education. So education is, according to the teachings of Baha'u'llah, the one of the prime things that we need to focus on. So everything that we need to do is to educate one another and to educate our children and our youth about our spiritual qualities. Not so it's not the focus of education is not necessarily only learning skills and learning about science and economics. You also have to learn virtues. And so the first level of education, which comes from the mother, really focuses on these spiritual qualities and how we can be of service to one another. So the greatest among all of the services, Baha'u'llah says, is to be an educator. So teachers have a very high standing, and the learned have a very high standing in the Baha'i community because they're the teachers of humanity, and especially if the teaching that they do is focused on virtues. So one of the central organizations, and all these pictures that you see across the bottom of this slide, these are the houses of worship, the continental houses of worship that have been built by Baha'is around the world. And these houses of worship aren't just places for people to go and pray. They're called the dawning places of the worship of God. And they start with, obviously, the building itself is where you go in and pray and reflect. But surrounding these institutions are some other subsidiary institutions. And they have included or will include in all of these cases, both locally and continentally. There will be schools and universities attached to these buildings, hospitals and senior care facilities and childcare facilities. So you can see that there's education and service attached to this as well. And it all forms part of what worship is considered to be, this whole service orientation in the Baha'i community. The Baha'i community has a community building process that it goes through. And it invites anyone who wants to participate, whether they're Baha'is or not. Again, it focuses primarily on moral and spiritual education of children, youth, adults, and young people. And we really see young people as being the hope of the future. And the more they have virtues as their basis, it becomes natural or second nature to them that they want to live virtuous lives because they're already educated in these spiritual principles. So the principles really focus on service to humanity, on consultation with one another to solve problems, how work is worship, how to share resources equitably across the globe, the importance of the environment and caring for one another, and moderation in all things, behavior, accumulation of wealth, and the like. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So just let me stop sharing so that we can see each other.
Well, I'm not sure if I should just jump right in, Paul, or not, but thank you. That was very informative. It's always nice to have a snapshot of history because there are lots of things in there that I'd never heard before. So it helps to bring, for me, a context as to why the Baha'i faith is where they're at. Because I'm on an iPhone and my screen is a little limited and tiny, teensy weensy here. So there could be a lineup of questions that I'm not seeing. Guy, are you seeing them on your end?
Don't see any here and none in the chat. So
Okay, well, then I'm going to take the liberty of asking you the first question, Paul, because I jotted one down and I thought it's everybody's on a journey of some type of faith. And I think that's what probably pulls us into a meeting like this today. But the one I jotted down, and if there's others in the meantime, put them in the chat box there and we'll grab them after Paul is with this one. But I wrote down wanting to know if Bahai was your first faith, or if you had a background in another faith that you embraced previously, and what drew you to the Bahai faith in the first place. That's my question.
Okay. I was not raised a Baha'i. I became a Baha'i in my 20s. I was raised quite a devout Catholic in a French Canadian family. So I was not only a devout Catholic, I was expected to be, as the eldest son, I was expected to be the priest of the family. So in a French Catholic family, that's the way things go. And so my whole life I had focused on building my capacities to become a priest. And when I went to university, I started exploring other faiths. I explored Buddhism and Hinduism. I explored Unitarianism, and as I studied those things, and this was also in the late 60s, early 70s. So it was the hippie era when everybody was exploring things. And I ran across the Baha'i faith through one of the ladies that I was dating, and became very attracted to it because of its community building power. And that's what attracted me, was building this spiritual civilization.
Great, thank you. And I believe we have a question pending there. Let me just grab it. And Eileen is asking, how many people in the Edmonton area are believed to espouse the Baha'i principles?
There are about 600 Baha'is in Canada, in Edmonton. And they're all over the city. So they've, they live in every part of the city.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, if I might jump in at this point, Larry.
Sure. Sure.
One is there a house of worship in Canada, or where is the continental house of worship for North America?
Okay, can I answer that one first?
Yes.
So the initial development of the houses of worship was that one would be built on each continent. So there's one in North America for the North American continent, and it's located in Chicago, or just outside of Chicago in Wilmette. So that's where it's located. There's also 7 others besides the North American one. So there's one located in Panama for the Central American continent. There's one located in South America, in Chile, and it's the last one that was built for the continental temples or houses of worship, and it's located in Santiago, Chile. The African house of worship is located in Kampala, Uganda. The European house of worship is located in Langenhain, Germany. The Asian house of worship is located in Delhi, India. The Oceanic house of worship is located in, located in Apia. I can't remember the name of the country. Samoa, yeah. The Australian house of worship is located in Sydney. So there isn't a local one located in Edmonton at this time. these houses of worship are only built where the community has reached a certain size. And so there are some local houses of worship being developed in Cambodia, in the Congo, in Kenya, in Papua New Guinea, in Colombia. So those are where the local houses of worship are located at the moment.
And the other question I'll jump in with is, I noticed in your quotations, you quoted from Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha. Is there a particular book or books that are kind of considered Baha'i scripture?
Baha'u'llah wrote thousands, literally thousands of books and tablets. So there isn't a single book, except we do have a book of laws called the Kitabi Akdas, the most holy book. So it sets out the laws that govern the Baha'i community. So you could read that, but there are many other books. There are hundreds and hundreds of books, and most of them are available free on the Bahai.org website. So you can download them as PDFs or as ebooks to your e-reader, and they're available free.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. The next question we have sitting in the queue is from Danik. Is it very difficult to visit a Baha'i chapel, or can I just get in?
Baha'i houses of worship are open to all faiths and to all people. The way that they signal this is they have 9 doors. So they all have 9 sides and they have 9 doors. And this symbolizes that anybody from any direction can come in and pray there. The houses of worship don't have any ceremonies. They just have prayer gatherings, and that's the only thing that happens there. So there aren't any sermons or any other things that happen there. People just go there to pray.
Okay, thank you. The next question we have sitting in the queue is from Len and Heather, and they're asking, can you reference the incredibly well done film, Re the Bob, that was premiered at the World Parliament in Toronto, and how can one view it?
The film, I believe you're speaking about the film called The Gate. It's available on YouTube, actually, so you can actually download it on YouTube and watch it. It is a very well done film. There's also a number of other films that have recently been developed, because we just, in the last few years, since just before the pandemic and during the pandemic, Baha'is have been celebrating some major anniversaries. So in 2017, the Baha'is celebrated the 200th anniversary of the birth of Baha'u'llah. In 2019, they celebrated the 200th anniversary of the birth of the Bab. And last year we commemorated the 100th year of the passing of Abdul Baha. So there have been some other films that have been put out that are available also on YouTube. One is called Emergence, which is a film on Abdul Baha. And there's some other films that are available on Abdul Baha if you look them up on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Shiraz, and it says, today, our worldwide majority of leaders of Baha'i faith born or adopted the faith as adults. Do you have a spiritual leader or perhaps scholar?
Baha'is don't have a clergy. So we have governing bodies. We have an international governing body located in Haifa, Israel. Body in every national community. So there's one here in Canada located in Thornhill, Ontario, which is just north of Toronto. And then the local communities are governed by elected local assemblies. So there's one here in Edmonton, and there's one in any place where there are 9 or more Baha'is. So where there are 9 or more Baha'is, there's an election, either an appointment or an election that takes place of those 9 members. And they serve for a 1-year term. The National Assembly serves for a 1-year term. And as I said, the International House of Justice serves for a 5-year term. So we don't have any clergy. We do have people that we call counselors, and they serve basically as they're what we call the institution of the learned. So they are a very learned people, and they help us to direct our energies. So they point out different things that exist in the Baha'i writings that we should be focusing on. But they're not considered clergy, and they have no interpretive authority, nor do they have any other authority. They're just there as spiritual guides or counselors.
Okay, thank you. And we've got one more question sitting in the queue from Audrey. Do Baha'i have any political affiliations? There have been recent persecutions. Where have these occurred, and how are these resolved? That could take you a while. That's a big question.
Yeah. The first question, Baha'is don't have any political affiliation. In fact, Baha'is are not allowed to have any partisan affiliations. So we're not allowed to be considered liberal, New Democrat, or conservative, nor are we allowed to be Republicans or Democrats. So we're not allowed to join political parties, nor we're allowed to vote, though. So we're encouraged very strongly to vote, but we're not allowed to take a partisan approach to politics. We don't believe that division is the way to achieve unity. So we don't believe in things like official opposition or opposition parties. We believe that what we do is we vote for the person we think is going to best serve the needs of the community. And we do that. That's how we vote for our local and national and international governing bodies as well. We're not allowed to campaign. No one is nominated. We simply vote for 9 people, and by plurality vote, those people with the 9 highest votes are the ones who are elected. And that's how we vote in our national and local elections as well. We don't expect any of them to, we're not voting for them because they're of a political orientation or not. In terms of the persecutions, there have been persecutions of Baha'is at various times throughout our history, and they're most notable right now in Iran and in Yemen, which is quite strongly influenced by the Houthis, who are strongly influenced by the government of Iran. And so that's where the main level of persecution, it takes place right now. It has also taken place certainly during the Second World War by Nazi Germany. There was some persecution of Baha'is at the time. And there have been persecutions that have happened in different parts of the world, but they tend not to last very long. The way that Baha'is deal with them is to bring this to the attention of, now that the United Nations exists, they're brought to the attention of the United Nations, and the Baha'is bring their case publicly and to the United Nations whenever they can, to try and get these countries that are persecuting the Baha'is to stop doing so. Does that answer your question, Audrey? Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, the next question is also from Len and Heather again. And what are the rites of passage, marriage, consecration, memorializations, and faith acceptance of new members of the faith?
Right. Okay, I'll start with the first rite of passage is becoming a Baha'i. So anybody can become a Baha'i. All they have to do is inform the local governing body that they consider themselves Baha'i, that they accept the teachings of Baha'u'llah and are prepared to follow the laws that guide the Baha'i community, and they will be accepted as Baha'is. If you grow up in a Baha'i family, you're considered a Baha'i as a child until you reach the age of 15. At the age of 15, you have to make up your own mind, and you actually have to, again, advise the local governing body that you would like to belong to the community, and you're accepted automatically into the community. The second rite of passage for most people is to get married. And to get married, this one is difficult for a lot of people outside of the Baha'i community to understand, but Baha'is require the permission of their parents in order to get married. So they first need to ask their mother and father if they will consent for them to get married. So Baha'i parents are not allowed to get involved in the selection of the mate. So there's no arranged marriages anywhere in the Baha'i world. And Baha'is, the only time Baha'i parents become involved is to give their permission for their child to marry. And that has to happen with both parents. And it's usually a permission that's given in writing to the local governing body. When that permission has been granted, then Baha'is are, organize a wedding ceremony, and as far as the laws of as far as Baha'i law is concerned, all that you have to do is have a Baha'i witness and say the vows that Baha'u'llah has given, and the vows are very simple, and it's not an I do kind of vow. The vow is, we will all verily abide by the will of God. So what you're acknowledging is that it's God's will that you're marrying this person, and you both acknowledge that to one another, and you're married at that point. Because of legal requirements, civil legal requirements, there's a registrar that the government appoints, and it's usually a member of the local governing body, and that registrar registers the marriage for the government, and so that person is called a registrar. And that's it for getting married. For getting buried, when you reach the end of your life, a Baha'i who dies has to be buried without being cremated or without being embalmed. And so there's basically a Baha'i, we do something very similar to what it happens in the Islamic community. So the body is washed and wrapped in a shroud. There's a ring that goes on the finger of one of your right hand that says, I came from God and I return to him. And that's basically what all that the ring says. Some people have it in Arabic, some people have it in English, some people have it in French. You have it in whatever language you want to put on the ring. And it's a very simple ring that you just put on the body of the dead person. And then the body is buried in a cemetery somewhere. So most Baha'is in Edmonton get buried in a cemetery that's located close to Sherwood Park. It's the South Haven Cemetery because the Bahai community has purchased plots there. But you can get buried in any cemetery you want. The other thing is that you have to be buried within 1 hour of where you died. So there's no transporting the body across the world. If you die in a foreign country, you get buried in the foreign country. You don't get shipped back to Canada. And those are the rites of passage.
All right, thank you. That's very interesting. We are getting close to the time, but I think we've got time for one more question Eileen's asking, and it's in really kind of hinges on the question earlier.
That was
on
tied into the elections one.
Yes,
Okay.
tied into the election ones, and she's asking if Bahai can run as independents.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
If Bahai can run as independents in a political.
Oh, Baha'is are not encouraged to run for political office because Baha'is believe that you have to be voted in by this plurality vote where there's no campaigning and there's no partisan politics involved. Baha'is are not encouraged to run for political office. They do vote, as I said, and they do strongly participate and support the government. And they consider following the guidance of a legitimate government to be important. And so they'll do that, but they won't run for office, nor are they allowed to hold non-elected offices that have a political. So a Baha'i couldn't be a political aid, for example, to the government. So a lot of government politicians will usually hire somebody as their chief of staff. A Baha'i couldn't be a chief of staff of a politician because it's a political office, basically. So wherever there's anything partisan which pits one individual or one party against another, Baha'is won't be involved.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Paul, for all of your time and answering a multitude of questions there. We are getting close to the end of our time, and I'm going to pass the meeting back over to Guy, who's going to wrap it up for us, because I'm sure for those who have more questions that Paul's available, and Paul, you can always drop something in the chat for links as far as Bahai can go for people, and can contact Guy directly to get more information outside of this meeting. So Guy, back to you.
Thank you very much, Patty. Wonderful job. Wonderful job. And thank you, Paul. You explained all those things very well, and I'm sure it was a great education for many of us. I just would like to remind everybody that in this World Interfaith Harmony Week, we have 2 more events. One more tomorrow is the watching the film called The Final Exam, produced locally by a well-known film producer, Beth Wishart McKenzie. It's a wonderful short video, about 11 minutes long, but very moving. I encourage you to look at that tomorrow at noon. And tomorrow at 7 o'clock, there's a community in Strathcona County that's producing another devotion time. So you're all welcome to attend those 2 events, and the links are shown on our website. So glad you all could come out, and thank you very much for attending, and I hope you learned something. And I see Len has another question. Oh no, he has a thank you note. Thanks, Len.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.
And this event has been recorded, and will probably be displayed on our website.